People hear my name, Jackson, and think they know my story. They picture something cinematic. The moment I saw my ex-wife again after 4 long years, standing there at our son's graduation, they imagine it was poetic, some kind of emotional victory. Like maybe I stood a little taller, took a deep breath, and thought, now she sees what she gave up. But that's not how it felt. There was no triumph, no closure, just a cold reminder of what I had to crawl through, a flood of everything I had to survive, rebuild, after she tried to leave me in pieces. But to understand what that moment really meant, you've got to go back to where it all began. Because this story didn't start at a graduation. It started years before, in New Orleans, the night I met ILA. I had flown out to visit my best friend, Marcus. He'd just opened a small, promising bar tucked in the heart of the French Quarter. If you've ever been to that part of New Orleans, you know it pulses with life. That night, we decided to unwind at a late-night jazz club not far from his place. Just 2 old friends, catching up. We found a table close to the stage, ordered drinks, and let the music wash over us. Everything was relaxed until I noticed her. She was sitting alone at the bar. At first, I figured she was waiting for someone. I didn't approach. Just watched, casually sipping my drink. But after a while, Marcus leaned over and said, "Man, you've been staring for 10 minutes. Go say something." He wasn't wrong. I figured, why not? Worst case, she turns me down and the night moves on. So I got up, walked over, and said something simple, unmemorable. But her response? She smiled like we were already mid-conversation. Her name was ILA. She told me she was in town from Dallas for a marketing conference that had just ended. Said she wasn't much of a drinker, but the music caught her ear on the way back to the hotel, and she figured 1 drink won't hate. We talked for hours. No awkward small talk. It was like we bypassed the usual steps and dropped straight into the deep end. We swapped stories, laughed about nothing and everything. Music, life, wake, dreams. By the time the club closed, it felt like I'd known her for years. She glanced at her phone and said she had an early flight the next morning. Neither of us wanted the night to end, but we knew it had to. We exchanged numbers. I walked her out. We hugged, said goodbye. She disappeared into the night like someone you're not sure you'll ever see again, but hope you do. At the time, I thought it was just a good night with a great woman. I had no idea it was the start of something so much deeper. That night didn't fade the way most chance encounters do. ILA and I started texting, then calling, checking in, morning, noon, night. Somewhere in between, we admitted we had feelings. We didn't rush into it, but we didn't slow down either. Soon, we were in a long-distance relationship. And yeah, it was hard. Loving someone from hundreds of miles away is never easy. But we made it work. After months of flights, weekends, and phone calls that went past midnight, I made a decision that changed everything. I packed up and moved to Dallas. I wanted to be where she was. Those first few months felt like a dream. ILA was ambitious, sharp, always pushing forward. She'd work late into the night, making pitches or taking calls. I respected that about her. Even when it meant missed dinners or tired conversations, I got it. I knew what her career meant to her. Meanwhile, I took on contracting work around the city, anything that gave me flexibility while we built our life together. We were opposites in a lot of ways. She was fire, I was steady, but that worked for us. Her drive lit something in me. My calm gave her space to breathe. We didn't fight it. We leaned into it. Before long, we got married. And a year later, we had our son. I remember holding him and thinking, this is the life I always dreamed of. For a few years, everything felt right. Sure, life got hectic, early mornings, late nights, but there was laughter in our home. We made it work. We felt like a team. Then things started shifting. Isla's career took off. Promotions, awards, endless recognition. I was proud of her. But the higher she climbed, the more distant she became. Overnight trips replaced late nights. 1 became 2, then 4, then weeks on the road. When she was home, she was either glued to her laptop or too exhausted to speak. She wasn't the woman I used to come home to. And me? My business was struggling. I was working nonstop trying to keep it alive. trying to hold up my end. But it felt like I was doing it alone. We were still under the same roof, but living in separate worlds. Conversations turned into checklists. Passion turned into routine. I stopped opening up, because every time I tried, it felt like talking to a wall. Then came the night everything cracked open. I walked into the kitchen and heard her voice, soft, flirtatious, on the phone. The tone was unmistakable. She toned, saw me standing there, and her expression said it all. We fought. Harsh words, accusations, and right in the middle of it, she looked me in the eye and said, "Maybe I should just divorce you." The air left the room. She stormed off, and I just stood there, frozen. We'd argued before, but never like that. I told myself she didn't mean it. But 2 weeks later, I was served divorce papers at my office. It was real, and it didn't stop there. She wasn't just ending the marriage. She was coming after full custody of our son. And the way she did it, ruthless. She told the court I was emotionally unstable, claimed I was a drunk, that I was never around, irresponsible, unfit. None of it was true. This was the same woman who knew how hard I'd worked, what I'd given up, how much I'd carried. But now she was twisting the truth, turning small things into weapons, fabricating the rest. I fought back, showed evidence of my involvement, my presence, my role in our son's life. But it didn't matter. The judge didn't seem to care. It felt like the decision had already been made before I even walked in. She won full custody. On top of that, I was ordered to pay an outrageous amount in child support every month until my son turned 18. He was 14 when it was finalized. For more years. And the fallout? It crushed me. Emotionally, financially, in every way you can imagine. Everything I had saved was wiped out. My reputation? In ruins. I felt hollow, just a shell of the man I used to be. And then, a few months later, the truth I'd been trying not to face finally surfaced. ILA had been unfaithful. It was a coworker I'd once asked about, the one tied to all those late-night meetings and so-called business trips. None of it had been professional. It was personal. It was him. The betrayal hit like a freight train. I didn't even have the strength to confront her. What would have been the point? The wreckage was already done. With whatever energy I had left, I packed my bags and left. I didn't tell a soul. I moved to a quieter part of Dallas, kept my head down, and disappeared. I needed space. Silence. I needed to survive the avalanche she had left me buried under. ILA had torn apart my life and walked away like she hadn't just detonated everything we built. Maybe she thought I'd crumble under the weight of it all, that I'd vanish completely. And maybe, for a time, I did, but I made a decision. Her lies weren't going to define me. If she believed she'd won, let her. I had more important battles to face. The first were financial. After the courtroom chaos, I was drowning in debt. My contract gigs had slowed, and my bank account was a joke. I knew something had to change. I needed to rise, fast. So I got to work. I took on whatever jobs came my way, some brutal, some humbling. I studied construction project management, knocked out a few certifications online, and slowly started to climb. The checks weren't massive, but they were steady. The bills were getting paid. The debt was shrinking. And that forward momentum? It gave me something I hadn't felt in a while. Hope. Then came the inner work. When someone you love, someone you trust with your whole heart, flips on you like a stranger, it shatters your mind. I was angry, broken. I felt like less of a man. Like I'd failed at being a husband, a father, a provider. I didn't know how to carry all that alone. So I didn't. I got into therapy. I started talking. I leaned on the few true friends who stuck around when the smoke cleared. They reminded me of who I was before the chaos. Little by little, I found my center again. Physically, I made myself a promise. I wouldn't look like what I'd been through. I started small, cut out the junk, took walks every morning. Then, when I was ready, I hit the gym. It wasn't overnight, but eventually I looked in the mirror and didn't see a broken man anymore. I saw progress. I saw strength, and I smiled. But through it all, through the pain, the growth, the rebuilding, there was one thing I never let go of, my son. Even though I couldn't be around him the way I wanted to, I stayed connected from a distance. I kept up with everything. His birthdays, school events, report cards. I sent gifts, left voice messages. I wanted him to know Dad didn't disappear. Our bond never broke. Even if the courts tried to keep us apart, I made sure love still reached him. Then one day, during a phone call we managed to have through a mutual family member, he said something that stopped me cold. Dad, I want to live with you. I told him, graduate first. Just finish school, and I promise I'll give you everything you need, everything you deserve. By the third year of picking up the pieces, my life started to feel stable again. That's when love found its way back in. It wasn't loud. It wasn't dramatic. It came gently, through someone who had already seen me at my worst and chose to stay. She'd been there through the silence, through the pain. She waited, without pressure. When we started dating, it felt natural, easy. I was honest with her from the beginning. I'm not doing legal marriage again. I'd gone down that road once, and I paid the price in full. She didn't push back. She understood. She respected the boundary. Then the day came. My son was graduating, and he asked me to be there. There was no way I was showing up looking like someone life had beaten down. No chance. So I went out and got a suit. Tailored. Clean. Sharp. Because that day wasn't just about him. It was about everything I had survived to stand there beside him. I made sure the suit fit flawlessly, every seam sharp, every line crisp. Clean-shaven, fresh cut, not a detail out of place. I wanted to show up right. I wanted my son to see me as the man I'd become. I got him a Rolex. Yeah, maybe to some it seemed over the top, but it wasn't about the money. It was about what it meant. A symbol, a marker of this transition from boyhood to manhood. On the back, I had his initials engraved. That watch wasn't just a gift. It was a promise, a legacy. I arrived early, as always, slipping into a seat near the back, where I could see everything without needing to be seen. My partner sat beside me, quiet and present. She didn't say much, and she didn't need to. She understood what today meant. She gave me space because she knew this wasn't about us. It was about my son. From across the auditorium, I spotted ILA. Of course, she was front and center, dressed at Impress, next to her latest man. The whole scene was staged like she was starring in some production. I didn't care. None of it mattered. My eyes were on one person, my boy. The ceremony followed the usual script. Speeches, applause, names called, cameras flashing. But I wasn't listening. I was waiting for his name, his moment. And then it came. My son walked to the podium to deliver a short speech for the graduating class. I watched him closely, locking onto every second. His eyes scanned the room like he was searching for something. Then he found me, and for that brief moment, everything else faded. I saw it in his expression, the recognition, the pride, the love, and then he spoke. I want to thank someone really important. He's sitting all the way in the back. Dad, thank you for everything. I see you now, and I'm proud of you. It hit me right in the chest. My eyes blurred. I hadn't felt that kind of pride in years. Every head turned. The room shifted. I could feel the weight of every gaze on me. Whispers followed. Even ILA looked back. When our eyes met, I could see the shock. She hadn't expected this. Not me. Not this version of me. She thought I'd be a ghost, broken, faded, forgotten. But I wasn't. I was whole. I had rebuilt myself from the ground up, and that moment proved it. After the ceremony, my son spotted me from across the room. His face lit up. He didn't hesitate. He moved through the crowd and wrapped me in the tightest hug, like he was pouring everything into that one embrace. When we stepped back, I caught ILA approaching out of the corner of my eye. My son saw her too, and didn't stop. He turned back to me, keeping the moment ours. She noticed. She tried to play it casual, like we were old friends reconnecting. Tossed out some small talk, fishing for familiarity. I gave her a polite smile, a nod, then turned and walked away. I didn't know her a single word. A few months later, my son came to live with me. He had told me he would, and I told him I'd be ready. And I was. The day he turned 18, He packed his bags and made his move. ILA tried to change his mind. Of course she did. She said all the things a parent says when they realize they are losing control. But he didn't waver. Not long after, I started getting messages from her. Casual at first. Hey, how have you been? Like we were just catching up after all these years. I read them. Didn't reply. Not out of spite. Just disinterest. She sent another, a little more thoughtful. Talked about co-parenting. Said we didn't have to be enemies. I still said nothing, because I knew why she was really reaching out. It wasn't about peace, it was about power. She saw that I hadn't collapsed like she expected, that I was standing tall, stronger, calmer, healthier, and that I didn't need her. She kept trying, always using our son as a reason to stay in contact. Conversations about his future, about choices he was making. But it always circled back to her trying to stay tethered to me in some way. I never engaged, because the truth is, I had already moved on. When everything first fell apart, revenge was all I could think about. I wanted her to feel every ounce of the pain I carried. I wanted her to suffer the way I had. But time changed me. I learned something. The quiet kind of healing is the most powerful kind of comeback. You don't have to burn someone down to rebuild yourself. You don't have to scream your growth into the world for it to be real. You just have to keep moving. Looking back, there are 3 lessons I carry with me, things I learned the hard way. First, pain isn't your enemy, it's your fuel. You can let it break you, or you can let it shape you into something stronger. Pain doesn't mean it's the end. It means something inside you is about to evolve. I used that pain. I built with it. And now, it's part of my foundation. Second, silence is powerful. You don't have to respond to every insult. You don't need to win every argument. Focus is louder than any comeback. When your energy is directed at healing, growing, and building something real, nobody can pull you back into the chaos. I stayed silent and let my life speak for me. And third, healing doesn't announce itself. It's not loud. It's quiet. It's personal. You don't need validation, applause, or recognition. You just need peace. That's what I found. So when I stood at that graduation, watching my son beam with pride, I realized something. I didn't need to prove anything to anyone. I didn't need to retaliate. I had already won. And if this story reaches even one person who's in that dark place, wondering if they'll ever make it out, I hope they know you will. You can. Just take one step at a time. And don't stop moving. Thanks for listening. Truly, if any part of this spoke to you, if it made you pause, or helped you in any way, share it with someone who might need it. Like, subscribe, keep the conversation going. Because sometimes all it takes is one story to help someone find their way again.